The veil of silence. The stars looked like tiny pinpricks of accusing light against the vast darkness as Commander Elena Reeves stood on the observation deck of the UHV Phantom. The experimental vessel represented humanity's last, desperate hope, the culmination of a decade of secret research, bleeding-edge technology, and sacrifices too numerous to count. Beautiful, isn't it? The quiet voice of Dr. Marcus Chen broke through her thoughts. Hard to believe something so deadly lurks beyond. Elena's gaze fixed on the shimmering curtain of energy visible at the edge of their sensors. The Teneri barrier, a wall of exotic particles that had protected the alien empire for centuries. Behind that veil, the Xenari built their warships and launched their raids on human colonies with impunity. 15 years, Elena said, her voice low. 15 years since they emerged from behind that barrier and started picking us off one by one. The Xenari had appeared without warning, their massive biomechanical ships materializing near the outer colonies. They communicated only once, a simple message broadcast across all frequencies. Your territories are now under Xenari protection. Resistance will be answered with correction. Correction had meant the complete annihilation of New Montana Colony and its 3 million inhabitants. Status report. Elena commanded as she entered the bridge, leaving the view behind. Lieutenant Sato looked up from the tactical station. Stealth systems operating at optimal capacity, Commander. We're completely invisible to conventional sensors. Conventional being the key word, added Security Chief Adama, his dark eyes serious beneath a heavy brow. We have no idea what detection capabilities the Xenari have. Elena nodded. That's why we're running silent. Navigator, how long until we reach the approach vector? 3 hours, Commander, replied Lieutenant Kwan, her fingers dancing over the holographic controls. Assuming the sensor data from the probes is accurate. It better be, Elena muttered. We won't get a second chance at this. The Phantom was unlike any vessel humans had built before. Smaller than a conventional destroyer, but carrying experimental technology that had cost trillions to develop. It was designed for one purpose: to do what every previous mission had failed to accomplish: penetrate the Xenari barrier and strike at the heart of their territory. Elena moved to the central holotable where a 3-dimensional representation of their mission floated in glowing blue light. Dr. Chen, give me an update on the phase shift drive. Marcus stepped forward, his thin face illuminated by the hologram. The drive is functioning within acceptable parameters. The quantum field is stable, but I must emphasize that this technology is still theoretical. The simulations suggest it will allow us to partially shift out of normal spacetime, hopefully making us partially immune to the effects of the barrier. But we won't know until we try. Elena finished for him. And if it fails? Marcus met her gaze steadily. Then we'll be scattered across 11 dimensions. It would be instantaneous. The bridge fell silent as the crew absorbed this information. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing the risks, but hearing them stated so clinically brought the reality home. 2 weeks ago, Elena said, breaking the silence, the Xenari destroyed Haven Outpost. 8,000 civilians, including 3,000 children. Intelligence reports suggest they're massing for a push toward Earth itself. She looked around the bridge, meeting each crew member's eyes. We're out of options and out of time. This mission is our last chance. The plan was audacious to the point of insanity. Use the phase shift drive to penetrate the barrier, locate the main Xenari shipyard, deliver a devastating strike using their new quantum disruptor weapons, and retreat before the aliens could respond. If successful, it would buy Earth precious time to prepare its defenses and show the Xenari that humans weren't as helpless as they believed. Dr. Chen, begin final preparations for phase shift activation, Elena ordered. Chief Adama, run a complete diagnostic on weapon systems. I want the quantum disruptors ready the moment we clear the barrier. As the crew moved to carry out her orders, Elena returned to the observation window. The barrier loomed closer now, its shifting colors both beautiful and terrifying. No human had ever seen what lay beyond and lived to tell the tale. Until today, she promised silently. In the hours that followed, the Phantom crept closer to the barrier, running with minimal power to avoid detection. The tension on the bridge grew palpable. Each crew member focused intently on their stations. "Commander," called Lieutenant Sato suddenly, "I'm detecting energy fluctuations 20 degrees off our port bow. Pattern matches Cenary patrol vessels." Alina's heart raced. On screen, the main view screen shifted to show 3 biomechanical ships, their hulls an unsettling fusion of technology and what appeared to be living tissue. They moved with an almost organic grace, their surfaces pulsing with bioluminescent light. "They haven't detected us," Sato confirmed after a tense moment. "They're maintaining standard patrol pattern." "Hold course and speed," Alina ordered. "Let them pass." Minutes stretched like hours as the Phantom drifted silently, the Cenary patrol passing within kilometers of their position. Alina found herself holding her breath until the alien ships finally moved out of sensor range. "We're clear, Commander," Sato reported, the relief evident in his voice. "Resume approach," Alina commanded. "Dr. Chen, status of the phase shift drive." "All systems green," Marcus replied, though his face showed the strain of hours of intense concentration. "But Commander, I've been analyzing the barrier's energy pattern. There's a fluctuation occurring, a rhythmic weakening in the particle density." Alina moved to his station. "Explain." "Here," Marcus pointed to a section of his display showing a waveform. "The barrier isn't uniform. It pulses, and at regular intervals, there's a microsecond where the density drops by approximately 7%. Can we use that?" Marcus nodded slowly. "If we time the phase shift activation precisely to coincide with one of these pulses, it could significantly increase our chances of successful penetration." "How significantly?" "From extremely unlikely to possible," he admitted with a grim smile. Alina considered this information. "Do it. Calculate the exact timing and coordinate with navigation." As they closed in on the barrier, the massive energy field dominated the view screen, a writhing wall of color that seemed to bend the very fabric of space around it. Alina returned to her command chair, her expression resolute. "All hands, this is the commander," she announced ship-wide. "Prepare for phase shift activation in 3 minutes. Secure all stations and brace for potential turbulence." The countdown began, each second marked by a soft tone. Alina gripped her chair armrests, her mind racing through every detail of their mission, every contingency they had planned for. "Phase shift activation in 10 seconds, announced Marcus, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "May whatever gods exist help us now," murmured Chief Adama. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Activating. The universe seemed to bend around them. Alina felt a sensation unlike anything she had experienced before, as if her body were being gently pulled in 1,000 different directions simultaneously. The view screen showed impossible colors as the barrier loomed before them. "Hold steady," she ordered, her voice sounding strange even to her own ears. The Phantom trembled as it approached the shimmering wall of energy. Alarms blared across multiple stations. "Hull integrity at 92% and dropping," reported Engineering Officer Rivera. "The barrier is interacting with our molecular structure." "Maintain course," Alina commanded. "Full power to the phase shift drive." The ship shuddered violently as it made contact with the barrier. Consoles sparked, and for a terrible moment, Alina thought they had failed. Then the view screen cleared, showing the barrier behind them and open space ahead. "We're through," whispered Quan in disbelief. "Commander, we've penetrated the Cenary barrier." A cheer started to rise from the crew, but died as they took in what lay before them. The space beyond the barrier teemed with Cenary activity. Massive space stations, shipyards constructing vessels larger than anything humans had encountered, and at the center, a massive blue-white star surrounded by what appeared to be an enormous energy harvesting mechanism. "My God," breathed Marcus. They've harnessed the entire output of their sun. Elena stared at the alien empire spread before them, her mind struggling to process the scale of what they were seeing. For 15 years, humanity had been fighting what they thought was the full might of the Ixenari. Now she realized they had been facing only a fraction of the aliens' true power. "Begin passage scans," she ordered, her voice barely audible over the pounding of her heart. "Identify the primary shipyards and defense systems. We came here to deliver a message. Let's make sure they hear it." Breaking through, alarms blared across the bridge of the Phantom as the ship's systems struggled to cope with the aftermath of their barrier penetration. The phase shift drive hummed dangerously, its components cooling after the tremendous strain of their passage. "Damage report," Elena commanded, unstrapping herself from her chair. The artificial gravity had fluctuated during their transition, and several crew members were nursing minor injuries. "Phase shift drive at 47% capacity and falling," reported Marcus, his face illuminated by the red emergency lighting. "We've lost the starboard sensor array, and there are microfractures in the outer hull plating on decks 3 through 5. Emergency containment fields are holding. Can we phase shift again to get back through the barrier?" Elena asked, already suspecting the answer. Marcus shook his head grimly. "Not for at least 12 hours. The drive needs time to recalibrate and cool down. Then we have 12 hours to complete our mission and find an alternate way out," Elena stated flatly. "Lieutenant Sato, activate the passive stealth system. Let's make sure the Ixenari don't know we're here until we want them to." "Aye, Commander." The bridge quieted as the crew worked to stabilize their damaged systems. Elena moved to the tactical station where Chief Adama was analyzing the sensor data they'd collected since breaking through the barrier. "What are we looking at, Chief?" Adama's fingers danced across his console, bringing up a three-dimensional tactical display of the space around them. "It's incredible, Commander. The Ixenari have constructed what appears to be a Dyson swarm around their star. Those structures." He pointed to massive ring-shaped installations, air harvesting energy on a scale we can barely comprehend. "And the shipyards. Here." Adama highlighted a section of the display where dozens of the distinctive biomechanical Ixenari vessels were under construction. "This appears to be their primary military production facility. Security is substantial. Automated defense platforms, patrol ships, and some kind of energy web linking the entire complex." Elena studied the display, her mind racing through tactical options. "What about this?" She pointed to a smaller facility slightly removed from the main shipyard. "That appears to be their command and control center," Adama replied. "All communications we're intercepting are being routed through that hub." A plan began to form in Elena's mind. If we strike there, we could disrupt their entire defense network. The quantum disruptors would be particularly effective against that type of structure, Marcus added, joining them at the tactical station. "The Ixenari technology appears to incorporate crystalline computing nodes that would be highly vulnerable to quantum state manipulation. Navigator, plot a course that will keep us in the shadow of that asteroid cluster," Elena ordered. "We'll approach from the system's ecliptic plane to minimize our sensor profile." As the Phantom began its careful approach, Elena gathered her senior officers in the ship's small conference room. The tactical display from the bridge was replicated here, showing their position relative to the Ixenari installations. "We have one shot at this," Elena began without preamble. "The quantum disruptors are untested in combat conditions, and we won't have time for a second strike. We need to hit them where it hurts most." "The command hub is the obvious target," said Adama. "Knock that out, and their coordination falls apart." "I disagree," countered Marcus. "Their primary power distribution node would be a more effective target. Without power, none of their systems function." Elena considered both options. "What if we hit both? Lieutenant Rivera, can we reconfigure the quantum disruptors to split the targeting beam?" The engineering officer frowned in concentration. "It would reduce the effective power by approximately 40%, but yes, it's possible." "Do it," Elena decided. We'll target both the command hub and the power distribution node simultaneously. Even at reduced power, the quantum disruption effect should cascade through their systems. As the team dispersed to implement her orders, Alina found herself alone with Marcus. The scientist looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes testifying to the sleepless nights spent perfecting the phase shift drive. "Do you think this will work?" she asked quietly. Marcus hesitated before answering. "The science is sound. The Xenari rely on quantum entanglement for their communications and power distribution. Our disruptors should create enough chaos in their systems to give them pause." He paused. "But Alina, what we're seeing here, the scale of their civilization. They've been toying with us. All the more reason they need to understand we're not to be trifled with," Alina replied, a hard edge to her voice. "They've murdered millions of our people while hiding behind their barrier, believing themselves untouchable. Today that changes." 4 hours later, the Phantom had maneuvered into position, using the natural cover provided by the asteroid field to mask their approach. The ship hung in space just 50,000 kilometers from the Xenari command hub, its stealth systems making it virtually invisible to the alien sensors. "Quantum disruptors charged and ready," reported Lieutenant Rivera. "Target locks confirmed on both the command hub and power distribution node." "All hands, battle stations," Alina ordered. "Lieutenant Sato, prepare to drop stealth field on my mark. Once we fire, they'll know we're here. We'll have minutes at most before they respond." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, each member focusing on their assigned tasks. Alina felt a moment of fierce pride in her team. Whatever happened next, they had already accomplished what no human had done before, penetrated the heart of Xenari territory. "Commander," Sato called suddenly, "I'm detecting increased communications activity across all Xenari channels. They appear to be celebrating something. Can you decode any of it?" Sato shook his head. "Not specifically, but the pattern matches what we've observed during their previous victory announcements." A cold knot formed in Alina's stomach. "They've launched another attack on a human colony." "Most likely," Adama agreed grimly. "All the more reason to proceed." Alina nodded, her resolve hardening. "Prepare to fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Drop stealth field and fire." The Phantom's stealth field dissolved as the quantum disruptors activated, twin beams of scintillating energy lancing out toward their targets. Unlike conventional weapons, there was no explosive impact. Instead, the beams seemed to sink into the Xenari structures, momentarily outlining them in a ghostly blue light. For an instant, nothing happened. Then the command hub began to shimmer, its structure becoming translucent as the quantum states of its component materials were forced out of alignment. The power distribution node fared no better, its crystalline structure fracturing from within as quantum entanglement failed across its network. "Direct hits on both targets," Adama reported. "Quantum cascade effect initiating. Their systems are collapsing." On the view screen, they watched as the disruption spread from their primary targets to connected systems. Xenari ships near the command hub suddenly lost power, drifting aimlessly. The massive energy web surrounding the shipyard flickered and died in sections. "It's working," Marcus breathed. "The disruption is propagating through their quantum network." Before they could celebrate, however, Sato called out a warning. "Commander, Xenari vessels moving to intercept. 3 cruiser-class ships and multiple smaller craft approaching from Vector 047. "How did they respond so quickly?" Alina demanded. "Unknown, but they're on an intercept course. Estimated time to weapons range, 3 minutes. Alina made a split-second decision. "We've delivered our message. Prepare to withdraw." "Lieutenant Quan, set course for the barrier. Maximum speed." "What about the phase shift drive?" Marcus asked urgently. "It's nowhere near ready for another activation." "Then we find another way through," Alina replied. "Chief Adama, analyze the sensor data from our passage. There has to be a weakness, a fluctuation we can exploit." As the Phantom accelerated away from the devastated Ceneri command center, the crew worked frantically to find an escape route. The pursuing alien vessels gained steadily, their biomechanical ships moving with unnatural speed. "They're targeting our engines," warned Sato. Evasive maneuvers. The Phantom lurched as Elena initiated a series of random course changes, trying to throw off the Ceneri targeting systems. A glancing hit from an energy weapon rocked the ship, sending cascades of sparks from an auxiliary control panel. "Shields at 63%, reported Rivera. "We can't take many more hits like that." "Commander," called Marcus suddenly, "I've been analyzing the barrier's energy pattern. There's a node, a control point, where the barrier originates. If we could disrupt that node, it might create a temporary opening. Can we target it with the quantum disruptors?" Marcus nodded. "Theoretically, yes. But we'd need to get much closer, and the disruption would be temporary, perhaps only seconds." "Seconds is all we need," Elena decided. "Lieutenant Quan, adjust course for the barrier control node. Lieutenant Rivera, prepare remaining quantum disruptor charge for a focused burst." The Phantom changed direction, now heading directly toward the shimmering barrier that enclosed Ceneri space. The pursuing vessels adjusted course to match, closing the distance rapidly. "Barrier control node in range in 30 seconds, reported Quan. "Ceneri pursuers will be in optimal weapons range in 45 seconds. "It's going to be close," muttered Adama. "Target locked on the barrier node," Rivera confirmed. "Quantum disruptor at 72% charge. It's all we have left." "Fire as soon as we're in range," Elena ordered. "Everyone brace for high G acceleration. The moment we see an opening, we're going through at maximum thrust." The view screen showed the barrier looming ahead, its shifting colors now seeming malevolent rather than beautiful. Behind them, the Ceneri vessels had formed a pursuit pattern, their weapons charging for a coordinated strike. "In range. Firing now," announced Rivera. The quantum disruptor fired, its energy striking the previously invisible node that anchored the barrier. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a ripple spread across the energy field, creating a visible distortion, a temporary weakness. "There," shouted Marcus. "The disruption is creating a phase variance. If we hit that exact spot, we might be able to push through." "Full power to engines," Elena commanded. "Aim for the disruption point." The Phantom surged forward, its engines straining beyond safe operational parameters. The Ceneri fired, their energy weapons slicing through space around the human ship. One blast struck the Phantom's port side, sending it into a spin that Quan barely managed to correct. "Structural integrity failing on decks 4 and 5, Rivera reported, fighting to be heard over the blaring alarms. "Hull breach imminent. Emergency force fields engaged," Adama added. "They won't hold for long." The disruption in the barrier was already beginning to close as the Phantom approached. For a terrible moment, Elena thought they had miscalculated, that they would crash against the energy field and be destroyed. Then they hit the weakened point, and the universe seemed to bend around them. The ship shuddered violently, systems failing across all decks as the barrier's energy washed over them. Elena was thrown from her chair, striking her head against a console before the emergency restraints activated. Through blurred vision, she saw the view screen flicker, showing a chaotic swirl of energy. Then blackness dotted with stars, the familiar stars of human space. "We're through," someone said, their voice distant and distorted. "Commander, we've cleared the barrier." Elena struggled to her feet, tasting blood where she'd bitten her lip during the violent transition. "Status report," she managed. "Hull breaches on multiple decks." Rivera responded, his voice strained. "Life support failing. Engines offline. We're drifting." The Ceneri. "No sign of pursuit," Sato confirmed. "The disruption must have resealed the barrier behind us." Elena nodded, wincing at the pain in her head. "Send out a distress signal on all Alliance frequencies. Let Earth know. Let them know we did it. As the crew carried out her orders, Alina stared at the view screen, now showing the barrier behind them, still intact but forever changed in humanity's understanding. They had penetrated the Exenary sanctuary, struck at their heart, and escaped to tell the tale. The message had been delivered. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. The message. The bridge of the Phantom was eerily quiet, emergency power providing only minimal lighting as the damaged ship drifted through space. Medical Officer Dr. Layla Hassan moved from station to station, treating injuries with their dwindling medical supplies. "Hold still, Commander," she ordered as she pressed a regenerator against the gash on Alina's forehead. "You have a concussion and shouldn't even be on your feet." Alina winced but remained seated in her command chair. Status of the distress beacon. Still transmitting. Sato confirmed from the communication station. But we're deep in the Oort cloud. It could be days before anyone picks up our signal. If they pick it up at all, added Adama grimly. We don't know how the barrier penetration has affected our communications equipment. Alina nodded, ignoring the pain the movement caused. What about life support? We've sealed off the damaged sections, Rivera reported. With minimal power usage, we have approximately 72 hours of breathable atmosphere. After that, he left the implication hanging. The situation was dire, but Alina couldn't bring herself to regret their mission. They had accomplished what they set out to do, proven that the Exenary weren't invincible, that their sanctuary could be breached. Whether the Phantom and her crew survived to tell the tale was almost secondary. Almost. "Dr. Chen, what's the status of the phase shift drive?" she asked. Marcus looked up from where he was helping to repair a damaged console. Completely fried. The power surge during our escape overloaded the primary containment systems. It would take a full space dock facility to repair it. "So we're stuck here," Alina concluded. "Lieutenant Quan, do we have enough thruster control to orient the ship toward Earth?" "Barely, Commander. I can align our main antenna array for optimal signal projection, but actual propulsion is beyond our capabilities." "Do it," Alina ordered, "and prepare a complete data package of everything we observed behind the barrier. Compress it and attach it to our distress signal on a continuous loop. Even if we don't make it, that information has to reach Earth." As the crew worked to carry out her orders, Alina found herself drawn back to the observation deck. The ship's systems were too damaged to provide artificial gravity throughout all sections, so she floated through the corridors, pushing off walls to navigate the weightless environment. The observation deck was dark, but the stars provided enough light to see by. Alina secured herself to a handrail and gazed out at the distant pinpricks of light. Somewhere out there was Earth, unknowing of what her crew had accomplished. And somewhere, much closer, was the Exenary barrier, now proven to be penetrable. "I thought I might find you here," Marcus said, floating through the entrance to join her. "You should be resting." "So should you," she countered. "Have you slept at all since we launched?" "Sleep is overrated," he replied with a tired smile. "Especially when you're making history." They floated in companionable silence for a while, both lost in their thoughts. "Do you think it will make a difference?" Alina finally asked. "What we did?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "Strategically, it's hard to say. We damaged their command structure and disrupted their operations, but from what we saw of their civilization, they have resources we can barely comprehend. That's not very encouraging." "I wasn't finished," he said. "Psychologically, what we did changes everything. The Exenary have operated for centuries behind their barrier, secure in the knowledge that no one could touch them. We just shattered that certainty. They now know they're vulnerable. And that humans, a species they dismissed as primitive, found a way to hurt them." Alina nodded slowly. "A message." "Exactly. And it's one they can't ignore." Marcus paused. "Of course, whether that leads them to seek peace or to escalate their attacks remains to be seen." Before Alina could respond, the ship's intercom crackled to life. "Commander to the bridge," came Sato's urgent voice. "We're detecting a vessel approaching at high speed." Elena and Marcus exchanged alarmed glances before pushing off toward the exit. By the time they reached the bridge, the tension among the crew was palpable. "Report," Elena ordered, securing herself to her command chair. "Vessel approaching from Vector 223 Mark 47. Sato reported. "Configuration is unknown. It's not matching any Earth Alliance or known independent designs." "Tenari?" Elena asked, her heart racing. "Negative. The biomechanical signature is absent. This is something else entirely." "On screen," Elena commanded. The view screen flickered to life, showing a sleek vessel with an iridescent hull that seemed to shift colors as it moved. It was smaller than the Phantom, but moved with incredible precision and speed. "They're hailing us," Sato reported with surprise. Elena hesitated only briefly. "Open a channel." The view screen shifted to show a humanoid figure, though clearly not human. The being had silvery skin that reflected light like polished metal, and large, multifaceted eyes that reminded Elena of an insect's. When it spoke, its voice was melodic, almost musical. "Greetings, travelers. I am Sentinel Nix Era of the Stellarum Collective. We detected your vessel in distress and your transit through the barrier. Are you in need of assistance?" Elena glanced at her officers, seeing her own confusion mirrored in their expressions. "This is Commander Elena Reeves of the Earth Alliance vessel Phantom. We are indeed in need of assistance. Our life support is failing, and we have multiple hull breaches." The alien nodded, a curiously human gesture. "We have been monitoring your conflict with the Exenari for some time. Your penetration of their barrier was unexpected and impressive." "You know of the Exenari?" Marcus asked, unable to contain his curiosity. "All spacefaring species in this sector know of the Exenari," Nix Era replied. "They have isolated themselves behind their barrier for millennia, emerging only to correct what they perceive as threats to their supremacy." "Then why hasn't your collective intervened?" Elena asked, a hint of accusation in her voice. "The Stellarum Collective follows a principle of non-interference in developing conflicts. However," the alien continued, "your actions have altered the equation. You have demonstrated capabilities that suggest your species has reached a threshold we did not anticipate." A surge of hope filled Elena. "Will you help us?" "We will render assistance to your vessel and crew," Nix Era confirmed. "Furthermore, the Collective wishes to establish diplomatic relations with your Earth Alliance. Your achievement against the Exenari has attracted our interest." As arrangements were made for the Stellarum vessel to dock with the Phantom, Elena found herself reflecting on the unexpected turn of events. Their desperate mission had not only struck a blow against their enemies, but had also apparently gained humanity a new ally. 3 days later, after the Phantom's crew had been treated for their injuries and the ship's most critical systems restored by Stellarum technology, Elena stood once more on the observation deck. This time she was not alone. Nix Era had joined her, the alien's silvery skin catching the starlight. "Your engineers are remarkably adaptable," Nix Era observed. "They have already begun incorporating elements of our repair techniques into your systems." "Adaptability is humanity's greatest strength," Elena replied. "It's how we've survived as a species. Indeed, it is why the Exenari fear you." Elena turned to face the alien, surprise evident in her expression. "Fear us? They've been slaughtering us with impunity." "Precisely because they fear what you might become," Nix Era explained. "The Exenari are ancient and powerful, but they are also stagnant. They have not truly evolved in thousands of years. Species like yours, innovative, resilient, determined, represent a potential future they cannot control." "And your collective? Do you fear us too?" Nix Era's multifaceted eyes seemed to shimmer with something like amusement. "The collective does not fear evolution. We embrace it. Each new perspective strengthens the whole." A communication chime interrupted their conversation. "Commander," came Sato's voice, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth Alliance Command." There, they're getting reports of excenary vessels withdrawing from human space. Elena exchanged a startled glance with Nixera. All of them. Affirmative. The excenary fleet is pulling back to the barrier. After Sato signed off, Elena turned back to the alien. I don't understand. Why would they retreat now? Your message was received, Nixera stated simply. The excenary believe themselves untouchable behind their barrier. You proved them wrong. Now they must reassess their understanding of your species and their own vulnerability. So our mission worked, Elena said, a hint of wonder in her voice. More effectively than you know. The Stellarum Collective has observed 17 species fall to the excenary over the millennia. Yours is the first to strike back successfully. It will not be forgotten. By them, or by us. As their conversation continued, the Phantom began its journey back toward Earth, escorted by their new Stellarum allies. The excenary barrier still shimmered in the distance, but it no longer seemed the impenetrable fortress it once had. Humanity had proven itself on the galactic stage. They had shown that determination and ingenuity could overcome even the most insurmountable obstacles. They had demonstrated that no species, no matter how advanced, was truly untouchable. The message had been delivered, and the universe had heard it. In the command center of the excenary dominion, Supreme Overseer Zextar studied the damage reports from their compromised facilities. The human vessel had struck with surprising precision, exploiting vulnerabilities the excenary had believed undetectable to less advanced species. The barrier penetration technology must be contained, insisted Military Director Vireleth. We should launch an immediate assault on their homeworld, eliminate their scientific capabilities before they can refine this weapon further. Zextar raised a tendril, silencing the military leader. No, such action would merely confirm what we now suspect, that these humans represent a genuine threat requiring our full attention. But Overseer, we have underestimated them, Zextar continued. A mistake I will not repeat. Withdraw our forces from their territory, strengthen the barrier, study their technology, and then, prompted Varleth. Zextar turned its sensory apparatus toward the star map showing the location of Earth. And then we either welcome them as equals or ensure they advance no further. Either way, the humans have earned our respect. They believed themselves alone in facing us. Now they know differently. As the Phantom journeyed home, carrying news of both their victory and the unexpected diplomatic contact with the Stellarum Collective, Elena Reeves knew that humanity's place in the galaxy had forever changed. They had believed themselves isolated and outmatched, fighting a desperate war against an invincible enemy. Now they stood at the threshold of a wider universe, having proven that no barrier, physical or technological, could withstand the human spirit. The excenary had thought themselves untouchable until a human battleship proved them wrong. And that was only the beginning.